back again. Now, when I talk about this story and I talk about other stories, I am going to say, I think and I believe. Now, when you write your papers, I don't want you to say, I think and I believe. I want you to state what it is you think as a fact, and then back it up with support from the story or the novel or the play or whatever it is that you choose to write about. I'm going to say, I think and I believe in the videos, because I want you to know these are my theories. And you are, of course, most certainly welcome to make your own inferences and your own theories. But back to Welty's story. When I read this story, I see a family that often tiptoes and uses subterfuge in order to cause problems, and they deal with things indirectly. Now, Mama will occasionally say something and just put it out there. But through other incidences in the story, we can see that the other characters are more subtle. I've already talked about Stella tattling and perhaps bending the truth about what Sister has said to Papa Daddy and Uncle Rondo, but we see other cases of subterfuge as well. For example, an outright lying, because Stella Rondo says that her daughter, Shirley, is adopted. Why does she claim that this girl is adopted? Well, because she's 2 years old, and because Stella and Mr. Whitaker had not been married long enough to have a child that was 2 years old. Sister hints at this indirectly, but she never comes out and asks or says, you know, Stella Rondo, I think that you and Mr. Whitaker had connubial bliss before you were married, and your daughter was conceived out of wedlock, and she is your biological daughter. Sister never says that, but enough is said that we, the readers, can draw that conclusion. And of course, Stella is just absolutely indignant when anybody says anything about the daughter to indicate that perhaps she isn't adopted. On page 596, Stella says, I ask you the instant I entered this house not to refer one more time to my adopted child. Well, she doesn't want too many questions going off, because the truth might be out. Now, Sister does say, and hang on a minute because I have it marked down someplace. Sister is talking about, and of course I can't find my notes now. Sister is talking about the little girl, and she says that she looks like Mr. Whitaker, and if Papa Daddy were to shave off the beard, that the little girl would look like Papa Daddy as well. So Sister is definitely putting it out there that Stella is lying, but she never says it directly. Now, back to this inference or the subtleties in which these characters accuse each other. Now, Stella, she's being backhanded because she's telling things to Papa Daddy and Uncle Rondo relating what Sister might said. But Sister gives Mama a poke at one point, and it is on page 597 and talking about the little girl. And she asked Mama about the talking business. You know, does the little girl talk? Because if she's not talking at 2 years old, then maybe there's something wrong with her developmental process, which isn't even necessarily true, because my son didn't talk when he was 3 years old, and there was nothing wrong with his developmental process, except he just didn't talk. He's 30 years old now, and he talks as well as anybody else. But still, it relates this to Mama, and then it is Mama, not Stella, not Sister, who asks on, again, page 597, can that child of yours talk? Asks Mama. Stella Rondo says, can she what? Talk, talk, says Mama. Birdie, 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 birdie. So Stella Rondo yells back, Who says she can't talk? Sister says so. You didn't have to tell me. I know whose word of honor don't mean a thing in this house, says Stella Rondo. And in a minute, the loudest Yankee voice I ever heard in my life yells out, "Oing, Popeye the Sailor Man!" And then somebody jumps up and down in the upstairs hall. In another second, the house would have fallen down. And then Stella Rondo says, not only can she talk, she can dance. I have my sincere doubts as to whether it was the little girl who was actually singing or dancing. You draw your own conclusions. So this is a story that we get entirely secondhand, just as we had the Cask of Amontillado, totally secondhand through the eyes of Montresor. And we see these characters drawn in certain ways. And I think that we can tell a lot of truth about these characters. But I think some of the truth that we can draw about these characters isn't from what Sister tells us about them, but her relaying of information that she doesn't even realize that she's relaying it in the way that she does. We have to infer some things, we have to assume some things, but at the same time, I feel that these characters are very rich. They're also Southern characters. We know that from their speech and, of course, from where it is that they live. Does the setting have anything to do with these characters? Yes, I think they certainly do. And I think that you could find these characters other place in the world, because this is a family that certainly could be found any place, and the things that go on with this family could certainly be found anything. But the fact that it does take place in the South, there are characteristics of the characters that are particularly Southern. I'm going to let you think about that. Of course, there's always a lot more to be said about anything, but I'm going to cut it off there. Now, Sister goes, one more thing. Sister has been to the university. There was money spent. We don't know why she comes home, but we do know that she is the postmistress. And she goes then to the post office, and she's staying there. And she said, and Estella, at the end of the story, and Estella Ronda came to me this minute on bended knees and attempt to explain the incidents of her life with Mr. Whitaker. I'd simply put my fingers in both my ears and refused to listen. I don't believe that for a second. I think Estella Rondo walked into that post office and started talking about her life with Mr. Whitaker, you're darn tootin' Sister would listen. So, there's a discussion board for you. Tell me what you think about this story.